All right. Before we dive in, do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda? I'm going to call for a comment that we are going to be talking about our budget later on today, but if anyone would like to speak on budget right now, they're surely welcome to.
Well, Josh, I don't have a budget matter, but it's been a while since I provided a little bit of a rail update. And the big news this week is that we have now officially spanned the entire breadth of the state of Montana, with Webo County adopting the joint resolution, and Dawson County adopted the joint resolution earlier in the week. And that brings our grand total to 9 counties. I spoke with Commissioner Todd Devlin from Prairie County earlier in the week, and they are in the process of getting their public hearing scheduled. That will be county number 10. And still in some conversation with Bighorn County, and hopefully that will come to pass in the next few weeks also. So
fantastic.
We are where we wanted to be, and September 17th, Martin, if you're out there, September 17th is our Montana Passenger Rail Summit, so it should be a good event.
That's so good. Yeah, on the swag, I'm seeing kind of look like a concert tour shirt, the logo on the front, and on the back, Webo, Prairie, Missoula, Gallatin, Silverbow, all down.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm coming to the website soon. Okay, our first item comes from our very own Jerry Marks.
Yes, we've been working with some growers on exploring expanding the flower industry. At this point, the cut flower industry. And after making several attempts to get it off the ground, we decided to see if we could extend the grant. And the Department of Ag has given us approval to give us another year on this grant, which is $8,818, in which hopefully next spring we can finally get our conference together.
Great.
So this is simply getting commissioner approval on accepting, extending this grant. We do have it all set up in our grants fund, so there's no change in the budget.
Great.
I would move that we do exactly what Jerry mentioned, accept and extend the grant.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Jerry, for
yeah. Well, thank you, folks, for the support.
In light of hey Jerry, we took a tour of a carcass composting facility yesterday up at Clearwater Junction, and what do you think? I'm wondering if some of these cut flowers you could use some carcass compost for.
Yes. Yeah, the carcass thing has been one that actually started up there as one way to prevent bears and wolves coming in around the calving season and that type of thing. So it has worked out well, and there's a number of those places around Montana now. So that's good.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, we could grow some flowers there, huh?
There you go.
Lots of compost available.
Yes.
Yeah. Jay?
Thanks.
Aaron,
thank you.
Aaron, you want to talk about this super cool idea of the scattered site? This is really great.
Thanks. So this is Erin Couts from Grants and Community Programs, Community and Planning Services. And I know we've talked to the commissioners about this a couple of times, but this is, we are asking for your signatures to amend our program income management plan with the state's Department of Commerce through the HOME program. As you may remember, we talked about in 1992, Missoula County got a first-time home buyer grant to provide loans to qualified residents to buy homes. And so that program was in effect since 1992, but then as home prices rose, we haven't really been able to do anything since about 2006, just with the different regulations that the federal government puts on you know, how much you can put towards and what's the maximum or the maximum price of a home and all that. So we started looking at different ways to use that funding, and in the meantime had talked to Trust Montana about their idea for a scattered site community land trust. And what that means is that then they would help qualified buyers who are low or very low income Missoulians look for homes to buy, or the person would find the home, they would bring it to Trust Montana, and then Trust Montana will help them with the financing for it. And what we can use our home program income for is to provide that gap financing to make it affordable for people who would normally not probably be able to buy a home in Missoula's market. So this is just a first start. We're kind of seeing this as a pilot project. Trust Montana will be looking for additional funds and will be applying for some grant funds to keep moving this forward. But do you have any questions?
Aaron,
Oh, sorry, Josh.
sorry. I was just going to toss this out. I tossed it out before, but I just kind of wanted to be on the record with it. I
Okay.
love this idea. I think it's super great way to create housing trusts, land trusts, without having to buy up giant pieces of property and look for big expanses of land that are all for sale at once. Just want to make sure that even as we endeavor to preserve affordability, we also create the opportunity for low-income people to create equity. And I'm a real strong believer in that. It's that generating equity is what actually breaks the chains of generational poverty. And it isn't so much first-time home buyer in my mind as first-generation home buyer. And if we can set someone up to generate equity over time, they'll be able to do that, pass on the opportunity to buy a house to their children, even in the form of small amounts of money that can get someone to a down payment. And so just as we endeavor to preserve affordability, let's not eliminate the potential for low-income people to generate equity, or we will still end up in this deeply divided class system that we live in right now. And I look at this effort as it's not just getting people into houses, it's creating a different type of equity and breaking down the caste system and opening the gateway to the middle class through home ownership, which has been a tried and true method to do it. So let's carefully walk that line and not be like, oh, great, now we have low-income people in houses where they'll always be low income. They'll just be in houses.
Yep. And that's where I think this can be helpful, because they will be building equity, just, not as much as, hopefully it will be a first step to future home ownership where they can build more equity. So, and I think Juanita was going to ask if Ermina wanted to add anything.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
This is Ermina with Trust Montana. Thank you so much for this. I think that Josh's point is really important, and I think that just means he understands our mission really well. We have seen community land trusts provide that step that people need to move from rental to home ownership, and we're seeing it across the country, and it's really blowing up as a model. So I'm really excited to be able to expand in this way. Well, thank you all very much.
Yeah, go for it. This is such a cool thing. A great way to figure out how to do land trusts without having to have one chunk of earth.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions?
Does Martin have questions? This is so exciting. I'm just, yeah.
Come on, Martin, don't be shy around good news.
That's good news. I have no questions. Thank you.
Yeah.
My screen just went blank, so I don't have the language, but I motion to approve. Oh my goodness. Where am I?
Let me sign this.
Yes, the Josh signed this this first step. My screen is completely blank. I don't see anyone. Okay.
Yeah, it says request board approved chair to sign home program income management plan with Trust Montana for a scattered site community land trust pilot project in Missoula County.
That's my motion.
Second.
All in
Thank-
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks,
Thanks
Romina.
so much. We'll give you an update as things progress.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is our own Jason Emery to talk about new changes in the Sophie Moise room.
Good morning. So what this is I was tasked with looking into better equipping the Sophie Moise room for hybrid sorts of public meetings. The room was originally designed, of course, with in-person meetings for the commission and other public meetings. We have a pretty robust sound and camera system in there, but including broadcast capabilities, what it lacks is the ability to have interactive participation by folks not in the room during those public meetings. And of course, with COVID and the pandemic that we're dealing with right now, we thought it'd be a good idea to go ahead and look at upgrading that room. So essentially what we'll do is we'll bring in our vendor to add some additional hardware, add quite a bit of additional programming so that is essentially just a fairly seamless experience for the people that are using the room as well as controlling the room. So that we'll have the ability to record the audio just like we would whether you're on Teams or on a phone call or in the room on a microphone. Of course, folks will be able to see the video no matter where they're at, and the agenda and things like that. So really, if everything works out as we hope, it'll be a pretty seamless experience and really expand our capabilities, well beyond, when this particular pandemic kind of slows down and things get back to normal. I think it'll certainly have a lot of benefits there. So with that, this is CARES Act fundable, so we've already pre-approved that. So we will, if approved, go ahead and get that scheduled. Probably happen sometime in October. Probably do a little bit of training for staff so that they know how to use it properly, and then we'll be good to go.
Thanks.
So, Jason, this is Dave. Could you contrast what this would look like in kind of operationally versus right now, if we were to do a hybrid meeting out of Sophie Moise, how the public would be involved in a meeting like that currently?
Sure. So right now, of course, we have the ability to, if folks are outside of the room currently, all they'd really be able to do is view, say, the live MCAT broadcast that we have going on in many of those meetings, or any other media agency for that matter. But they really don't have an easy way to interact. So if they want to give comment remotely, be included in the video and the recording, that sort of thing. So what this will do is allow those existing video feeds and audio feeds that we have in the room to also broadcast to Teams and have the ability to pick those up in reverse. So if someone wanted to give public comment via a Teams meeting, they'd be able to do so similar to what we're doing here, and have that all included. So in-room participation, on the telephone for those calling users, as well as a video Teams meeting. They would all go into one spot and be recorded, as well as being able to say have a conversation.
And Jason, in terms of the MCAT connection here, would what is being viewed through Teams be identical to or separate from what MCAT is doing?
MCAT would actually, my understanding is MCAT would actually be able to pick up those Teams video feeds and audio feeds as well. So that would be included in their broadcast for folks that are just watching it. So it really just kind of merges, those two technologies into one uniform audio and video feed that's available for whomever wishes to pick that up.
Great.
And this is different than what's in downstairs in B12, right? It's a completely different system.
Yeah. So the basement, the meeting room in the admin building there, that's more just traditional Teams. So we did put a little better camera in there. Of course, we have the audio conference phone, but of course that room is limited in capacity, and it serves kind of a same function, I would say, other than that room isn't equipped for traditional media sort of feeds like MCAT.
Got it.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the Sophie Moise room too, of course, beyond just the additional capacity, is we do have more advanced equipment in there. So we have 3 cameras that can get things from different angles. The person in the back that's running that, you know, of course, they can zoom in. You've seen it in the meetings, and they can pan tilt those cameras. The audio is, of course, much more robust as well. So it's really just kind of leveraging that fairly robust investment that we put into that room initially to, you know, kind of transition into this online meeting world as well, without having to, you know, look at a standalone system, you know, adding typical webcams and that kind of stuff. It allows us to really use that high quality video broadcast gear that we've got to be available in Teams as well.
Great.
Oh, sounds good, and I'm delighted that it's a reimbursable expense. So
Yeah, fantastic.
I'd move that we authorize the chair to sign the retail sales agreement with AVI Systems.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
And next up is Jason Hauser to talk about a short-term cleaning contract.
Good morning, everybody. So we just expired on a 3-month contract that we had with Garden City for cleaning throughout the county. This is another 2 months just to try and get us through the process of we're doing an RFP right now for the cleaning contract, sending that out to the public. So hopefully this will cover us for the next couple months until that's done. So it's just an extension of the temporary that we already have in place.
Great.
And was this part of the conversation that we were having last week about janitorial services or actual janitors? I wasn't part of that conversation. I just remember an email thread.
This is just the services that we have in place. That conversation was more about, from what, if I think I'm getting you right, was more about background checks on individuals that have access to certain areas of the buildings. This is strictly to continue with what we have in place now for the next couple of months.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Then yes, I request the board approve temporary cleaning contract, or the temporary cleaning contract with Garden City Janitorial.
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Eric Dixon.
You're muted, Eric. All right, how about that?
Good.
Okay, sorry. So you may recall that we were offered millings from MDT on their Highway 83 project in the Condon area, and so we opted to accept those millings so that we could provide hard surfacing on some of our existing gravel roads. We've used millings in the past, but never used an asphalt rejuvenator or any sort of binder that would kind of re-solidify those millings. So early on, we opted to go that route, and so we solicited bids for a product that our staff researched and decided would be the one that we wanted to try. So with that solicitation, we received 3 bids, and Western Emulsions in Billings was the low bid. We estimated that we would need 55 tons of this asphalt emulsion to bind approximately 3.65 miles of roads, and at $850 per ton, the estimate was just around that $42,500. We actually completed the work yesterday and have actually received an invoice as of 3 o'clock yesterday, so they got right on that. But because of the amount of work that we did, we had a little trouble with MDT's contractor, so we did not get millings placed on Placid Creek Road as of yet. I'm not sure if we will. So we ended up only doing Holland Lake Road, Frontier Drive, and Canyon Drive. And so the actual bill is closer to $20,000, but the work is done. We worked with Western Emulsions to dial in an appropriate application rate for the conditions, and from what I've heard, it's been a very successful project up there. So we would recommend that the professional services agreement that the
Purchase agreement.
Purchase agreement, yes, thank you, be signed.
Is that then I'm confused what you just said about the amount. Is it 42?
So we originally had planned about 3.65 miles of millings to be laid. And we came up about a mile short because of the problem we had with MDT's contractor and getting millings down to Placid Creek Road. So we actually we applied a little over half of what we were intending to apply. Part of that was for, of course, the reduced mileage, but also with the temperature conditions and the condition of the road. Normally we apply that at a 50-50 concentration, so half asphalt emulsion, half water, just to get it to flow. And with the conditions on site yesterday, they ended up dialing that concentration back to just over a 25-75 split, so 25% asphalt emulsion, 75% water. So our quantities have been reduced greatly from what we originally estimated.
Okay, I guess I was just saying the 42,500 is the figure, and then we just haven't used it all yet.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay, sorry. I just love the expression asphalt rejuvenator.
I like rejuvenator too.
So, sorry, Josh, were you going to ask a question?
Are you guys have you heard yet? Have you heard it all from MDT? Are they going to be able to make the contractor bring the millings over?
Well, I'm not sure if Shane's on the line. I don't know if he's had a conversation with them. I know that internally we've had the discussion and it doesn't sound like it, but I don't know if Shane has heard any different.
Yeah, I haven't, Eric. Joe was going to talk to Jason Livingston, who's MDT's project manager, and get thoughts from him. I did talk to Bob Bozen, and I don't know. I guess if we need to include Bob in more of it, we can. If we're not happy with our answer from Jason, but I don't think Joe's got an answer yet from Jason. At least he hasn't shared it with me. If he has.
Well, then
I would.
Sorry. It's your turn, Dave. Sorry.
I move that we authorize the chair to sign the purchase agreement.
Yeah, we better do it. Otherwise, we got to go pick up all the millings and mop up the rejuvenant. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so now that we bought the asphalt emulsion, we had to have a way to get it there. And Western Emulsions is just a vendor. They don't transport or apply for us. So we contacted a few of the trucking companies that they recommended, and W.R. Drinkwalter and Sons was available, and they could fit us in our schedule for coming to them kind of late in the construction season. So they again, since we did the work yesterday, they were the contractor that did the work. They were very accommodating for us, and worked with our timeline and our problems on site yesterday. So we would recommend that the professional services agreement with W.R. Drinkwalter be executed.
So a question to Eric or anyone else. Shouldn't it? I guess I would expect it to be the case that we would sign or execute a PSA before someone does the work. Is it just simply because of the compressed time frame that this is coming before us now?
Yeah, it was not easy work. I mean, I don't mean to knock Western Emulsions, but we've been talking to them since April, and our original contract with them was for the delivery, or for the supply and delivery. And as we got closer to doing the work in early August, when we were establishing an actual schedule, I sent them a professional services agreement, and their corporate office looked at that and said, well, we're not going to sign this contract because of, the insurance requirements and because of the fact that they are not a distributor, they're just a supplier. So it was mid-August when we were scrambling to find a trucking company that could haul and apply for us. So yes, normally we would like to have this in place, but the steps along the way were just not very smooth. So, and of course not that we were far ahead of the game, but for what it's worth, we had this scheduled for Tuesday to be the day in advance of their application on Wednesday. So we were definitely up against a tight deadline for getting this signed before they did the work. And then with the slight delay, that's just the way it had to go this time.
Okay, thanks.
Motion to request the board approve professional service agreement with W.R. Drinkwalter and Sons Trucking.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
All right, Shane, let's talk build.
Yeah, so I guess the next two items are build related. Both of these are with DJ&A. So the first one is professional services contract with DJ&A to complete design for the elements that we've prioritized and have funding to build. So those will be the Mary Jane North and South, George Elmer South, England Boulevard, and a portion of the Flynn Trail. And those are the 5 elements that we've discussed in the past. So DJ&A has completed 30% design of the entire build project. Those 5 elements, we're going to go from 30% to 100%, hopefully by mid-December or late December. So this contract is for DJ&A essentially to provide all those design services. The cost is $1.5 million and change. I had estimated it to be around, 1.4 and change, so they were a little high. I did work with DJ&A, and we went pretty thoroughly over their contract and tried to find areas where we could save, and I think they did a pretty good job of going as lean as they could with their contract. So I don't know if there are any questions.
Shane, could you just recap how those costs are going to be covered?
Yeah. So we're going to utilize both city and county funds, local dollars. So there's no build money in the PE components of this project, and I think that's going to make it easier in the long run for us. But the county has committed $800,000 to the PE side, and the remainder will be funded through the city. And not just this 1.5 million, but I've got an amendment coming up for the 30% design as well. But our 800,000 essentially will cover our costs for both the 30% design and then finishing to the 100% design as well.
Okay, thanks. And for folks who may not be on the line who may not know, Shane, could you define PE?
Sure, the preliminary engineering.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right.
I would move that we authorize the chair to sign the 100% design contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the next one is an amendment for the 30% design. So DJ&A did do some additional work on the 30%, but they also removed some activities, and so there was some negation and some adding, if you will, of that original 30% design scope. And before we kind of finish those activities up, I just wanted to make sure that we had the amendment done and all the activities that they did were going to be paid for. I just wanted to make sure that it was documented. So what that does, it does raise the ceiling in the contract slightly. The original 30% design fee was 132,000. It would go to 1,156,000. However, they are right around 930,000 expended right now, and because we just started, you just approved the new contract, they're going to start charging to that. So their cap goes up to 1.15, but I don't think we're going to go over the 930,000.
Okay, well, I'm moved that the board approve the 30% contract amendment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Hey, and while we're talking build, Shane, so I think we discussed this the other day a little bit, but we should be learning relatively soon whether we were successful for our second build application. Should we not?
Yeah, I think it's September 15th, if I remember right, Dave, was the day they told us. So yeah, it's in the next few weeks.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Amanda, we're going to talk about the Fairgrounds District.
Good morning. On August 13th, we held a public hearing for the special district for the Missoula County Fairgrounds. At that hearing, we took public comment on the assessment of 3 mills for the fairgrounds, or equivalent to $744,927. This levy has been in place since fiscal year 2018, and we're asking to continue it this year as we sell bonds and take on debt service for funding the projects for renovations of the fairgrounds.
Great. And just to be clear, Amanda, for folks who might not be familiar with this, Missoula County is the only property within the district, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so if anyone's fearing that this is somehow coming out of left field and they're within the district, they are not. It's Missoula County property within the Fairgrounds District. So I would move that we adopt the resolution and approve the assessment.
Thanks for saying that, Dave. And yes,
Yep.
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. All right, on to RSIDs.
Again, we held a public hearing on August 13th to take comment on the RSID budgets for fiscal year 21. None of the assessments are increasing, and the budgets are relatively static this year. There are no anticipated changes. So I'm asking that you approve the resolution for the assessment for the RSIDs and their budgets.
Great. Is it my turn? Sorry, here. I motion that the board approve the resolution to set assessments and budgets for RSIDs.
Second.
Yeah, worthy of note, there's no increases.
And
Same money as last year, isn't that right, Amanda?
That is correct, yes.
And I feel like, was it the last time we had this discussion, there were some folks that were a little confused by this on the phone, and were you able to, did you and Andrew feel like you were able to ease their concerns or explain it to them that there were not going to be increases?
I do believe that most of their questions were answered. I think a lot of them just were concerned on why they were receiving a notice. It was a new thing that we did this year to comply with state statute.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think those notices were great and they caused some alarm.
Agreed.
Okay. Did we second on this one already? I don't even remember.
Oh, I will move that we adopt the resolution and approve the, or do we just do this?
We just need a second.
We just needed a second.
I'm losing my mind here. Yeah, I'll second that.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Budget season is almost over.
We're getting there. I have one more for you today.
I see that.
So again, on August 13th, we held a public hearing for comment on the Seeley Lake Refuse District assessments. The assessment for this year will be the same as it has been for the past 10 years of $150 for each occupied lot, tract, or parcel of record within the district. And we're asking to maintain that same level of assessment for fiscal year 2021.
Great. I would move that we adopt the resolution and approve the FY21 assessment.
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Way to keep it.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
10 years.
This afternoon.
Thank you. Yes.
Hey, does Annie Kathy have her hand up?
I do. Sorry to interrupt. We have a guest that entered the meeting by the name of Hector, and I was hoping to get his last name for a roll call.
Okay, yeah, my last name is Ovale, O-V-A-L-L-E. Sorry, I don't have it in the name. I'll put it right now.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you. And if you're not presenting, if you wouldn't mind just turning off your camera, that would be great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Any correspondence?
Oh, I received an email just this morning, and sorry, can't find it. And this is maybe more for Allison. Apparently there was a KECI piece about budget in this confusion of the 2% figure. And so I didn't know if Allison, you had a chance to reach out to KECI.
I have not yet, but I can definitely do that.
Okay, thanks.
Will you just forward me that email?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Great. Okay, so discussion items. Is Dory on the line?
I am on the line, and I've invited Montana Media Hub to come and give you a presentation about the sort of exciting project that they are working on, hopefully in the Missoula Technology Park. And they've met with CAPS. They're in the process of getting zoning compliance approval. That's really one of the first steps, but they've also been active in some of their other due diligence, and Brent O'Connor at Public Works has been helpful in working with them on stormwater, which in the Missoula Development Park is a really big issue to address head on. So I'm going to pass it on to them to, I think there's 3 maybe people on the line, 3 or 4, to introduce themselves and give a short presentation, and then then give the commission a chance to ask questions. Adam, do you want to start, or Steve?
Yeah, I think Steve is going to start. Steve, are you on and functional?
I am on, and I believe I'm functional. I just unmuted my mic, so I think I figured out the controls here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Great. Well, Dory, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to give a brief presentation. Some of you may recognize me from 4 or 5 years ago when we started working on this project back at the feasibility study level. But just as a matter of introduction, so Steve Grover, CEO of Montana Studios, and I've got, I believe there's 2 other people that are part of the team that are on the call. Hector, who I think clarified his last name, which I'm not going to attempt to pronounce here. And then Adam Graham, who's a partner with Shadowcast Partners. So just a real brief background, as some of you may recall, when we did the feasibility study, the technology park was one of 3 properties that we looked at as a good potential for developing the media campus. And kind of the heavy lift that we had ahead of us at that point was getting the film incentive passed so that the state would become competitive in attracting large productions. So we achieve that goal in 2019. And then with some market conditions that have changed with productions coming to the state, essentially Adam and his partner, Josh Schrader, who's some of you may know, Josh lives in Florence, is another partner in Shadowcast Partners. And we've teamed up to pursue putting in a media hub in Missoula. And I'll let Adam take over and give you a brief overview of what we're proposing, and then we'll take questions.
Yeah, thanks everybody for allowing us to join you today. As Steve mentioned, Josh is kind of our local person on the ground. Unfortunately, he is actually on the site right now with Jackson Construction and I believe an engineer walking the site and kind of getting a better idea of what the engineering constraints may be. But as Steve indicated, we just like to share with you general parameters of the plan, what we're looking to do. And with that, I'll just go through some slides. I don't know if anybody's had the chance or seen these in advance. I think maybe Josh had sent them to Dory, but feel comfortable, piping up if you have questions as we go through, and Steve, myself, or our other two partners can answer those. So I'm gonna, let's see if I can successfully share this. All right, has everybody seen the cowboy screen? Okay. So as Dory mentioned, and Steve alluded to, our intention and plan here is to build a purpose-built studio-grade soundstage and media production facility. We really think Montana is poised to, with the right investment, really establish a strong new industry within the state due to the Media Act, which was tax incentive passed last year. Beyond that, there's a lot of intrinsic qualities and attributes that the state has that we believe make it appealing to film and television producers. But really, to get into the game, a state needs a highly incentivized tax program, and that's now what the state has. And that's essentially what drew myself, Josh, and our partnership in and got us introduced to Steve over the last year. So having said that, we'll just kind of go through what we're calling right now a working title, the Montana Media Hub. So the project's going to be about $20 million. What we're discussing is a 120,000 square foot purpose-built facility. As Dory mentioned, we're looking at a assemblage of parcels that the county, I believe the county owns within Missoula Technology Park. In a moment, we'll get down to that map and you can see particularly what we're looking at. But our thesis for this and why we're particularly excited and in turn why we're hopeful that we can get you all and all the other stakeholders within the state, county, and municipality excited is just the explosive growth that's occurring within visual streaming content in particular, but television and movie overall. It's really it really has strong secular tailwinds behind it, and it's in a world of real estate where everything seems to be overpriced. This is one asset class where there's just not enough supply, given the really insane demand by streaming, television, and network media content producers. We have some stats we can back that up with, but as you can probably appreciate, the production of the original content exploding. Right now, these type of studios across the country, but in particular in Los Angeles and states like New Jersey, Illinois, and Georgia, the vacancy or availability of that type of space is almost non-existent. So we believe with the time zone difference, the direct flights that are coming from Los Angeles daily into Missoula, the proximity of this site to the airport, as well as to ample lodging, hotels, local businesses, vendors that these companies would be working with, we think that Montana is in a great position to really establish a new industry and capture a lot of market share. Apologies, that's my dog. So with that, I'm just going to go ahead and going to roll through these slides. And Doug, and just stop me if you have any questions. So this is the location. As you can see, we're about a mile and a half from Missoula Airport. Right up here, this is the Missoula Technology Park. Again, we like this because in some instances, productions will be flying talent and crew in for the day and out later that day. So the proximity to the airport's fantastic and a big reason why we chose this, or why we're really targeting this site. Drilling a bit more closely to the location, you can see the parcels, or you can see the land that we're looking to purchase and we've placed an offer on. And then over here you can see how an aerial rendering of how our proposed facility would be situated on this land. The additional land on the southeast side would be for future expansion. Our belief and certainly our hope is that the demand is such that in the not too distant future, we could very well be in a position where we could expand this campus at that point by adding additional sound stages. Here's the actual land and parcels that we've placed an offer on. The parcels highlighted in yellow, as you saw on the previous slide, are where the initial development phase will be located. And then the 5 parcels to the right would be the potential future expansion. These are very early conceptual renderings we've had done from an architect. And this gives you an idea of kind of the size of the facility. This would be looking at it from the southeast, looking northwest to the front of that building. So getting into the particulars, as I mentioned, this is 120,000 square foot. It's one building, but it's composed of 7 different spaces. 3 of those are the actual sound stages. You can see examples to the right of what a sound stage looks like. For all intents and purposes, it's a lot like a warehouse. We've got, I believe, planning for 40-foot clear ceiling height. And then, as you see in the top and bottom picture, this is what's called a structural grid. And this is where the production would house or hang lighting, different parts of the sets that they're going to be building. So with 3 of those, again, 20,000 square foot each, 20,000 square foot of mill space. Mill space is, and Steve, you can step in if I don't correctly describe this, but this is essentially production fabrication space where the users or tenants would be building the props, the stages, etc., that would go into the stages for filming. Then 20,000 square feet of office space. We see this probably being built so that it could be divisible for times when we have multiple tenants in the facility. So this could house up to potentially three different office using temporary devising walls. And then 2 4,000 square foot flex space portions. And in the next slide, we'll get down and I'll show you the floor plan so you can kind of visualize this. But flex space could be overflow for office. It could be storage. It also could be home for smaller tenants. Video game production is a possibility where they require smaller space. It would be highly technology focused development of software, video games, etc. That's an idea as well. And then in the back or to the northwest, as you'll see in a moment, that's what we call backlot or base camp. And that's where a lot of the activity happens in terms of truck parking, outdoor shooting, you know, that type of thing. And then in the middle, there's a 20-foot wide drive, which will have large doors on either side. And this allows the productions to drive trucks, park cars, put campers for actors, etc., inside the building. And it also allows folks to get directly from the sound stages to the office or the mill space without having to go outside, you know, in January and February Montana weather. So as I described the intended uses, this is really focused on television and film productions. This could include streaming platforms such as Netflix, Amazon, Apple, but also large network and cable giants, Paramount, Warner Brothers, Hallmark. And then as I indicated, the additional flex space gives us the opportunity to potentially seek out other smaller tenants who wouldn't necessarily need 20,000 square feet, maybe would be focused on visual media production of different types, whether that, again, be software, video games, etc. So here's the preliminary floor plan. As you can see on the bottom, you'll see the sound stages going from left to right, each being 20,000 square feet. Each one would have what's called an elephant door. It's essentially a large door that tractor trailers can back up to, or you know, equipment, machinery can easily be moved in and outside. Those are the three on the exterior. We also have identical doors facing the interior. Here's the drive that I alluded to. We'll have access both from the roughly south and the north end. Up here, you'll see the office. Right now, this is kind of laid out to have two different offices, which could be divided in some manner. To the right is the mill space. I think we're showing two mill doors over here. Again, this is production fabrication for everything that would go into you know, significant television and movie production. And then the flex space, the two flex space suites right here in the middle. These are just some additional photos of the conceptual plan we have. Here you can see an interior concept. This demonstrates what a soundstage would look like with a couple of different sets built within. This is the back. So here we're showing what I mentioned earlier, the base camp, or the back or back lot would be over here. Again, closer up on the front entrance. And then here's the aerial. It's kind of situated incorrectly, but again, you can see the facility as it would potentially sit on the site. This is a cutaway, and really just what you saw previously. I think it's oriented differently, but mill space over here. You're looking at the entrance right here, or the front of the building. Flex spaces, office, sound stages. So the development schedules, you know, this is not concrete by any means. As Dory mentioned, we spoke with CAPS yesterday, and we're speaking with you now today. So we're just now engaging, and you know, one of our objectives is to really get an understanding of what the kind of pre-development entitlement process and likely timeline would look like. We have built up a good group of industry experts, both locally, as I mentioned, Josh Schrader today's work walking the site with Jackson. They're one of two different general contractors we're speaking with. We're also working with a group called Roadtown Enterprises. Roadtown is they're planted squarely in the film and television production industry. They do consulting and advisory services, both from a development and construction project management perspective, but then also from a leasing, and by leasing I mean tenant identification, contacts with major studios. So they're a group who knows and has worked closely with groups like Netflix, for example, Apple, Warner Brothers, Marvel, and then also studio management. Roadtown currently manages Atlanta Metro Studios, which is one of the larger studios of this kind based in Georgia. And just for some background knowledge, Georgia is a state that I couldn't tell you the particular date. 10 to 15 years ago passed similar legislation to Montana's Media Act, and since then have done a fantastic job attracting capital and building the infrastructure to make Georgia, Steve, I would say probably the second or certainly third leading state for this industry after California. So within 15 years, Georgia's established a very vibrant and thriving industry, which has created a considerable amount of economic value and full-time jobs within the state. So Roadtown manages a facility there, as I said, called Atlanta Metro Studios, and they bring amazing expertise, both in terms of what this facility needs to have, in terms of size, and amenities, but also the ability to attract tenants to ultimately make it viable. And then we're working with an architecture group that's based in Georgia. We may bring on a local partner as well who has designed several studios as well. So we feel like we've assembled a fantastic group of industry experts to kind of round out our knowledge and make this a very viable and feasible project. So the construction's estimated to take, anywhere on the short end from 10, potentially up to 15 months. And then we think, we're going to work along the path that we're going to manage this on a project by project basis, so that tenants would come in, use the space for a particular television series, season, or movie. We could potentially have 2 or 3 of those at a time, but it's also quite likely that a well-capitalized group like Netflix or Amazon or Apple, given the overall lack of available space and their need to produce new content and have space on hand, we think it's quite likely that one of those groups may see this and want to lock it down for a year, 2 years at a time. So, from an operational perspective, that's going to be a best case scenario. But if that doesn't happen, we believe, given the lack of availability elsewhere, we can have this stabilized, within 6 months of being completed. So these are just some slides on economic impact potential for the industry. As I mentioned earlier, it's a large industry. However, it's really focused on a small handful of geographic locations, with the nucleus has always been based in Los Angeles and California overall. But from an economic perspective, you obviously are going to have the direct investments and expenditures that come from the studios into the production locally, but there's also considerable indirect activity that comes from this, not least of which would be job creation. The purchase of local goods, obviously hotels in the area would be important, because not all of the the producers and directors and talent or actors, likely don't live here. Some of the crew and staff, we believe, would after a time, once we can, once the industry's on solid footing. We know that Montana and Montana State universities have programs, undergraduate majors within this. And so we see this as a great way to keep talent in state, but then also bring talent, and employees who may be interested and willing to relocate. One thing that's happened in Los Angeles, not surprisingly, is it's incredibly expensive to live there. Western Montana is already growing. We just see this as a fantastic industry to provide additional jobs to attract further in-migration. So that's just a synopsis of of how we believe this being the first step helps build up and provide economic incentives for the state. But essentially, the Media Act by itself can't produce this. There does have to be that capital invested. And at this point, I don't think I mentioned it earlier, this will be the first purpose-built studio of its kind within the state. And my belief is that, with one comes a proof of concept and more will follow. The slide here shows you some examples of other states who, within the last 10 to 15 years, have passed similar legislation and some of the economic benefit that they've seen. So I won't go through all of these, but as you can see, if you look at the states on the right, you can see some of the numbers. Georgia, for example, since they passed the tax incentive in 2018, they passed in 2008, but in 2018, they valued the economic impact of this industry at $9.5 billion, with $2.7 billion in direct spend. And since passing, that direct spend numbers increased by 2,800%. Illinois also largely focused on Chicago, but they passed a similar incentive in 2011. They welcomed 520 productions in 2018 with $474 million in economic impact, which is multiplied by 4 times in 10 years. And similar stories in New Mexico and Utah. The slide, the final slide here just shows you that, the setting movies and shows set in Montana aren't new, but a show being set in Montana doesn't necessarily mean that it was filmed in Montana. In a lot of cases, films that are purportedly set there have been filmed elsewhere just because the economics didn't make sense at that time. But we think that, with this, not only will these films be able to actually produce on site, but will also attract a lot of studio productions that don't necessarily have anything to do with Montana and the storyline, but it's a great place. It's now easy to get to, and now the economic incentives are there to make this a competitive location to shoot. So that's an annotated version of a much bigger deck, but I didn't want to bore you guys with more details. I do think that this is kind of the most pertinent information for this conversation, but I'm happy to share any additional info you guys may have about what we're intending to do, and I think it's a good time to open it up for questions if anybody has any.
Hey Adam, this is Juanita. Maybe you had said this earlier and I just missed it, but if this is the first in the state of Montana, why'd you guys, I mean, you did say the proximity to the airport, but why Missoula?
Well, Missoula has a lot to do with the familiarity that our team has with that area. Obviously, Steve is there. My partner and good friend Josh he grew up there. He and I worked together in Europe for several years. He then went on to do development work, real estate development work in Spain, Dominican Republic, and Mexico, and has recently moved back home. And I guess that's probably the easiest reason. He and I have been looking for opportunities and ideas to do something in Western Montana. I'm very fond of it just from having visited him quite a bit. But that's the tie to Missoula. Montana in general, really it's the tax legislation that has made this particularly realistic. I would say. But it's the ties that Josh has there, and you know, our introduction to Steve, what, 6 to 8 months ago, when we kind of got this started spitballing this idea with him. He obviously has been looking to do this for much longer. But hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does.
Thanks, Adam. This is Dave. Hey, could you go back to the slide that showed the timeline?
Sure.
Yeah, so one question I have, maybe this would be for you, Dory, on the Q4 Dory there, you mentioned final city approval. It was my understanding this has not been annexed within the city since it's part of our tax increment district, has it not? And what would the approvals be?
Oh, excuse me?
Yeah, that is correct. So it's through the county. So they are working with the CAPS office and County Public Works. So
are there additional city approvals that would be required for what you're proposing?
No, I don't think so. This is Steve. I think that, would be more correctly, final county approval is probably what should be there versus city approval at this point.
Yeah. Forgive me, guys. This is, as I said, we're just getting started with you all. I had built this slide out probably a month ago. So as I get a better understanding of who the groups and bodies are that we need to be work with, we obviously need to sharpen this up. I mean, I can already tell you that, well, you can see land going under contract in August. That's passed. So I think coming out of the discussion we had with CAPS and the next steps with them and then with yourselves, within the next week, we will refine this slide based on more accurate dates. Not to mention that the conversations Josh is having as we speak with Jackson is going to give us a better idea on the construction timeline too. So expect this all to shift out 2 to 3 months, I would say. And we're going to have to sharpen our pencil once we have more input from the general contractor. This is all very preliminary at this time and may end up, not only being pushed out, but the overall timeline may end up being a bit longer.
Sure. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, this is an exciting opportunity, and glad to have you with us today.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Commissioners, early next week, you will be on admin. There'll be a recommendation from the MDA board on the offer that they submitted. So hopefully by the end of next week, that part will be hopefully taken care of, or at least under review. So it's moving along. And I don't know if Adam was looking at his emails, but during his presentation, Tim Worley emailed that CAPS had approved the use for zone as compatible with the zoning. So lots of other zoning questions to come up, but that is a hurdle crossed.
Fantastic. I had not seen that. That's great news.
Dory, did the committee, the MDA board, committee of the MDA board have a good meeting on this yesterday?
They did, and we'll be putting that together for you. Yes, it's very productive, and
Great.
Bert and Katie and Carlson and Dave were very spent quite a bit of time in discussion. So
yeah, I'm glad they'll all.
And just to be clear, there's no Bitcoin mining going on at this facility. Okay. Unless it's a TV or film production of the Bitcoin mining industry.
Yeah, maybe someone will make a movie about the Bitcoin phenomenon, but if not, no, I don't envision that. Not anything that we've discussed.
Excellent.
Great. Well, we're thrilled that this is moving along.
Thank you. Thank you. We're quite excited about it, and we're happy to hear that you all are as well.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
You bet. Any other questions for us?
We're good now. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about when we get to this offer next week.
Wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Hector.
Thank you very much.
Okay, as we're well over time, any communication needs, requests?
Nothing from me today. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Josh, can I ask a quick question? This is Martin.
Yeah.
Hey, I just, during that slide presentation, I noticed that most of those slides said confidential. Were they aware that the media was listening to that call? I'm assuming this is now public information since it's part of this presentation.
I have no idea, Martin.
What I can say,
or Dory?
yeah, what I can say is at least I told them.
Okay, good enough. Thanks a lot. Okay.
Meeting would be. So Steve, can you?
So yeah, this is Steve. I clicked off, and just as I was clicking off, it sounded like somebody might be asking a question. So I clicked back on, but I think I missed the question. So.
Steve, were you aware that media was on the call?
I think we've been told that that was a possibility. Yes.
Great. Okay, we just wanted to make sure. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Yeah, and I guess just as just a real quick final thing, some of you probably are aware that the Paramount Group is leasing space out in Bonner. So there's one facility that when we talk about ours being the first purpose-built facility, that's because it's being built to be a soundstage from the ground up. There's been some remodeling going on out at the fabrication facility out in Bonner. For us, that's good news. The fact that Yellowstone made the decision to shift their entire production from Utah to Montana was kind of the catalyst that has kind of kicked some of the other investment groups on board in terms of seeing that things are for real in terms of major productions coming to Montana.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martin.
Okay. Thank you. Any COVID stuff, wildfires, ball lightning, seismic activity, zombies, grizzly bears?
On that note, I'll sign off.
Thanks.
It's a typical day in Montana.
Yeah. All right. Upcoming board meetings. Anything else? Great. At 15 minutes over, we'll call her done. I do need to jump too. So thank you all.
Goodbye.
All right.